Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 9, Hippias Minor 365d to 366a. Socrates has just suggested that they drop Homer from the conversation for the obvious reason that Homer cannot explain what he intended by these lines. Socrates seems to be suggesting that Homer should be left out of any discussion of a Homeric poem. It's as if, were we to analyze a dialogue by Plato, we should leave Plato out of the analysis. Does Socrates mean that we can't hope to understand Homer, or that Homer simply cannot speak for himself, and we should analyze his characters to understand what's going on? Fortunately for us, Socrates carries on talking. Su depedei faine anatechomenos tenaitian, kai soisun doke tauta haperfes Homeron legen, apokrinai koine, huper Homeru te kai sautu. But you, since you appear to accept the claim, and the same thing seemed to you as you say Homer says, answer in common on behalf of Homer and of yourself. Well, this isn't what I had in mind when I thought that Socrates wanted to drop Homer. What he appears to mean now is that they're just going to ignore the text, and because Hippias shares the opinion that Homer has, Socrates will ask Hippias questions. Can you imagine this happening in Plato studies? I understand Plato and I share the same opinions, so if you want to understand Plato, just ask me questions and I'll say where Plato is being serious in the text. I suppose someone could argue that if Plato has made Socrates suggest this idea, it must be what Plato thinks is the right way to do literary criticism. I can speak for Plato, and Plato approves because he says so. Luckily, no one says this. In the meantime, Hippias is happy to be the voice of Homer. Estai tauta al erota embrachi hotibule. So it will be, but ask as short as you like. Hippias is confirming that they're engaging in eristics, where you have question and answer, and Hippias is implying that he is an expert in eristics. He generously allows Socrates to ask the short questions typical of eristics, and Hippias implies that he will answer with short answers. For Hippias, the whole point of this conversation is to show off his ability to do eristics. I should point out already that we are not going to see a typical eristic debate because Socrates doesn't ask the correct eristic questions. He doesn't try to trap his opponent, and most notably, he doesn't try to get the audience to laugh at Hippias. Socrates begins, Tus pseudes leges hoion adunatus typoien hospetus kamnontas e dunatus typoien. Do you treat the false people as unable to do something, like sick people, or as able to do something? Dunatus egoge kai malas fodra alla tepolla kai exapatan anthropus. I treat them as able, very much so, especially in deceiving humans. You may have noticed in the last few sentences, nobody is addressed, and we have to understand who's speaking. It's interesting that Socrates does start out with an eristic question. Are the ones who lie those who can or those who can't do something? And Hippias is brave enough to choose one of the options, that those who lie have ability, because Hippias wants Odysseus to appear as bad as possible. Odysseus doesn't just make mistakes or not tell the truth, but he intentionally deceives. And for that you must have ability. Dunetoimende hos eoiken, si kataton son logon, kai polytropoi, egar, nai. But the able are, so it seems, according to your argument, also polytropoi. Is that right? Yes. Of course, yes is said by Hippias. Note his ability to give short answers. It's very impressive. It's interesting how Socrates has inverted the able and the polytropoi. Hippias, the whole point of his argument is to say that polytropoi are actually bad people who deceive, but Socrates has begun with the deceivers who are able to deceive, and now he said, and they're also polytropoi. Polytropoid esi kai apateones hupo elithiotetos kai afrosynes hupo panurgias kai phrodesios tinos. Hupo panurgias panton maista kai phronesios. Are the polytropoi also cheats by silliness and imprudence, or by all-doing, cunning or something like that, villainy, and some sort of prudence? Hippias replies, by villainy above all things and prudence. The word I ended up translating as villainy is panurgia, which means doing everything, all-doing. The adjective that goes with this, panurgos, is someone who is prepared to do anything. It's meant in a bad sense, so it's a villain, someone who is cunning or clever or smart in a bad way. And if you think about it, this is very much like polytropos in the second sense. In the first sense, that's Odysseus being much turned by all the bad things that happen to him. But in the second sense, polytropos is someone who turns in many directions and therefore is clever or smart, but in a positive way, usually. It's only Hippias who's made polytropos bad here for the sake of the argument. Socrates connected panurgia with prudence, which were both opposed to silliness and imprudence. When Socrates asks by which of those pairs the polytropoi are cheats. The polytropoi must be connected with panurgia, all-doing, and so Hippias has to choose that pair, panurgia and prudence. More exactly, Socrates says a kind of prudence. This is important because prudence is usually one of the four cardinal virtues: prudence, courage, wisdom, justice. Sometimes in Greek philosophy, prudence is replaced by moderation, temperance, constancy. They're all sophrosune in Greek. And phronesis, prudence, becomes the overarching virtue of which the four cardinal virtues are aspects. This, I think, won't matter in this dialogue. Notice it's Socrates who has made this virtue negative in this dialogue. We see the same thing in English. Wise can be negative, streetwise. Be wise, not just. Because of the link with panurgia, Hippias has no choice but to choose prudence along with panurgia. In other words, these cheats, these polytropoi, are also prudent and prepared to do anything, which is a Sounds a bit of a contradiction, really. Phronimoimen araesin hos eoiken, naima dia lian ge. Therefore, they are prudent, so it seems. Yes, by Zeus, exceedingly. Here Socrates has shifted from the noun phronesis to the adjective phronimoi. Socrates again. Phronimoi de ontes uk epistantai hotipoiusin e epistantai. Kai malas fodre epistantai, dia tauta kai kakurgusin. And being prudent, they don't understand what they do, or they do understand. They very much do understand. It's because of this that they also do bad. The verb do bad, kakurgen, is far more explicit than panurgen, which Hippias could have chosen. That would be the verb cognate with panurgia and panurgos, doing all, prepared to do anything. Kakurgen is to do kaka, bad things. Socrates again. Epistaminoi de tauta ha epistantai potron amatheses e sophoi. Sophoi men una autagetauta ex apatan. And understanding those things which they understand, are they ignorant or are they sophoi? Are they expert? Well, they're expert in this, to deceive. Notice when he has to, Hippias doesn't give a simple A or not A answer, but a qualification. They're expert, that's all he should have said. Yes, they're expert, but he qualifies it. They're expert in deceiving. Why does he need to qualify? Because Hippias is the expert in everything apart from being a bad person. Socrates sums up. Echede anamnesthomen tiestin holeges, tus pseudesves enai dunatus, kai phronimus, kai epistemonas, kai sophus, es haper pseudes. Femigar un. But hold, let us recollect what it is that you say. You claim that the false are able and prudent and knowledgeable and expert in what they are false. Yes, for that is what I claim. I'm trying hard to recollect Hippias claiming any of this. As far as I recall, Socrates asked a string of questions and Hippias answered. In each of his answers, there were some of these terms. It's Socrates who has put them all together. We'll talk about this technique next time.